Okay, so we need to look now a bit more about how to give the user some feedback when they get it wrong. So obviously we're looping round in this while loop around this statement here, allowing for the user to re-enter their choice. And we need to think about how we could print a message to them telling them what they did wrong. Now the problem goes, if we do a print message here, then obviously this comes before the first time we ask the question. So we can't tell them they got it wrong the first time before the question, so that wouldn't make sense. If we put it here, then it will print it after they've asked the question whether they get it right or wrong, so it doesn't kind of make sense to put a warning message there. If we put it here, well, it'll only print when they've come outside the loop and they got it right anyway. So it doesn't seem obvious where we could put this print statement. So we need to have a kind of a think back about maybe the structure of how we've coded things here. So we're kind of going around this loop. Now, if it's a 1, what do we actually do? We return out of this function. So if they put a valid input in, when we hit this return statement, it goes out. If they put a 2, it returns out. So what we could do, actually, thinking about it, is if we also test for the user choice being our last possible input, which was a 3, and return scissors. So if it was a 1 or a 2 or a 3, we will return out of our code. So we'll only get to the bottom of here if it was invalid. And we hadn't kind of thought about that before because we've got our validity choice up here. So if we get to the bottom here, now I know the construct's not quite right yet, but just kind of stick with me. If it's a 1, we return out of the code. If it's a 2, we return out. If it's a 3, we return out. We get to the bottom, so we could think, if I can work it out how to make it happen, here I could be printing the message, you must enter a 1 or a 2 or a 3 and then press return. Of course on most keyboards next, enter. Okay, now again it's pretty obvious with ours because we've told them to enter a 1, 2 or 3 up here, but again you've got to imagine we could be using this another case. So at the moment this is in my while loop anyway, so to make it part of my while loop I need to indent everything. Obviously make sure I indent my returns because they belong with the if statements. Indent here. So I could do this now, so this I think would work. I'm not going to actually leave it like this, although by all means you guys have a play with it and see if it does work. But think about it now. If it's a 1 or a 2 or a 3, it's going to break out of this loop anyway because it's going to hit the return statement and go. So it's only going to come back to the top if it's not a 1 or a 2 or a 3. So in fact in here we can do something like this and say while true. So it's a bit of an odd concept if you get the idea of this while true. While true means we do it forever because while true is always true. So we will do this loop forever unless we obviously break out of it with any of these return statements. The neat thing is now I don't need to preload this user choice because I'm not using it. So now look at the syntax. While true, get the user choice. If it's a 1, get out the program and return rock. If it's a 2, get out and return paper. If it's a 3, get out the function and return scissors. If it's not one of those, you won't have returned. You'll get to the bottom and it'll say you must enter a 1, 2 or 3. And it will go back up to the top, re-evaluate this condition, which is always true because it's actually the value true, and it will repeat the loop again. So it seems a bit of an odd idea to have this while true loop, but we quite often have this, and if we've got a while true here, we either return out of the loop like this or we use a break command, which we'll see in later coding. But this is a perfectly legitimate construct. So let's just see if that works now. So enter rock, paper or scissors. I'm going to press enter. You must enter a 1, 2 or a 3. press R, you must enter, gobbledygook, you must enter, finally put the 2 in, and hey presto, we're in. So you'll see this construct quite often when we're validating user input. It's quite a neat way to validate it by using a while true loop, doing our input statement, testing for all our possible values and returning them if that's appropriate, and then get to the bottom and print our warning message. It'll automatically go back up to the top, and because it's while true, it'll just repeat around this loop until it breaks out when one of the valid inputs has been entered. So again, it's quite a neat way how to validate user input.